Ahmad Halabi from Resecurity. It's always a pleasure to speak to you. One of the brightest minds in cybersecurity across the Middle East. We've had several conversations over the years, and I always look forward to speaking to you. So look, we'll jump straight into it. I feel like, I repeat myself a lot, and it can sound cliched, but the AI technology, the speed of adoption, it really is hard to stay on top of that. It is changing and evolving all the time. With that comes issues when it comes to securing it, because companies are adopting it aggressively, quickly, and maybe security is not always at the forefront of their mind. In terms of the way you see it from a cybersecurity perspective, what are sort of emerging threats that are coming with this sort of cycle of AI adoption and momentum? What's your perspective on it? What's your fears in terms of the way some companies are approaching it?
Yeah, well, first of all, Mark, always pleasure. You're correct 100% regarding AI. Like we are adopting AI in the security field, hackers are also adopting AI in their tactics, trends, attacks, tools, and so on. So, especially now, it's becoming faster and more, let's say, qualified when they're trying to develop certain attacks and so on, because it's making their work easier with the AI, and it's making the work of the security analyst harder, because imagine having let's say an engine with AI where you just task it that, hey, find me a vulnerability in website X, or escalate your privilege in this access which we got, and so on. So it's pretty scary with this development. And I believe, with AI, it's making things harder, to us as cybersecurity professionals, and it's making things easier to hackers, especially when they develop their custom agents and their custom models, which allow them to predict specific vulnerabilities, automate exploitations, acquiring further intelligence data about the target, and so on. So it's really scary. That is, if we don't want to speak about the phishing campaigns, the scamming campaigns happening, as well as the deepfake.
There's a whole myriad of issues there. It's not just one thing,
it's two types. The basic ones that target the consumer industry, let's say fake account, fake domain, so on, which is pretty similar to the legitimate organization from a brand impersonation perspective. And the advanced attacks, which hackers utilize AI to, attack, target actual environment and gain access and exfiltrate information.
No, look, I think that's a fantastic sort of way to lay the foundation in terms of the current state of play when it comes to AI and cybersecurity. We'll touch on brand protection and sort of those brand impersonation attacks later, but you talked about the sort of security analysts, and there's been an argument made with the sort of deployment of AI agents that cybersecurity practitioners who are under a lot of pressure from alert fatigue are being empowered by AI agents. But again, the challenge there that many are saying is access. Like, how do you determine how much access you give an AI agent? Again, like you said, an AI agent can be a vulnerability, it can be exposed. How do you marry that? What's your view on AI agents to maybe combat some issues for cybersecurity practitioners in terms of alert fatigue and things like that, but also have that human oversight that ensures that you're deploying AI agents in a safe and secure way?
Yeah, and that's more regarding the governance and compliance perspective, to ensure that nothing is leaked by utilizing AI. I believe it's all about feeding it with the right content and data,
the quality of the data.
Yeah, so two ways: either let the AI handle everything, but it requires huge structured data that is designed for that, and it may be sensitive based on your industry and your way of doing business. And the other way is just create the baseline for the AI to handle the secondary things. Yeah.
That makes sense.
So you secure your data, you ensure that nothing critical is going out, and it's just doing the baseline homework, and utilize the rest, and you do the rest of the actual work for that.
Yeah, that makes sense to create a baseline. Is that something that is being done, or is that the advice you would give, is to sort of create that AI baseline and work from there, because it's a good starting point? Is that the advice you would give a lot of enterprises?
Definitely.
Yeah.
To ensure that, number one, there is no data is leaked because of it. And number two, I mean, AI is not going to replace analysts, right?
No, absolutely.
It will increase efficiency, it will speed up the process, and it will deliver, more work in a less load. So that's why analysts can oversee things and direct, instead of doing everything hands-on and gets his hand dirty everywhere. And AI can do the automation machine thing that
takes time. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's as you say. No, you've made that distinction very clear. I just want to bring you back. You sort of categorize the different types of attacks, and one of the attacks you said was obviously replicating web pages and maybe a text message that looks like it's from Emirates NBD or your banking providers. Very sophisticated, and because we're used to having those interactions through our apps, whether it's Emirates NBD, it isn't a shock to get an alert from an Emirates NBD or a different, a retailer or someone that you engage with. But hackers are clever. They obviously observe that behavior, and their brand impersonation attacks are on the increase as a result. How do you protect against that? Because it's basically not a question on maybe the banks need to do better or the retailers, but it is a sort of end user sort of, like take me for example, your normal, as you would say, Joe Soap in the street. How do you combat that? Is it more education? Is it more awareness? Is there certain red flags that you need to look out for? I'm using banks as an example because it's related to money.
Yeah.
Do banks need to do better? What's your sort of overview on the brand impersonation attacks from a consumer end? What do consumers need to do? And also then from an entity, what do the entities need to do better to protect their customers?
Yeah, and this is endless battle, Always you need to kind of create some balancing between your employees, like the bank as a brand, the business, the employees, and the consumer part,
100%.
which is not easy to control and manage. I believe it's more, and the problem here is, you can educate your employees, you can educate your whole departments, but you cannot educate the consumer, you cannot force the consumer to learn these things. And if incident happens on the consumer side, he will blame you.
100%, yeah.
So I think brand awareness is important, but making things easier to be complicated on the hacker's side, but usable and easily manageable on the customer side is good. And I'll give you a live example.
Yeah.
Remember before, when you do online payment, usually you receive SMS with a code, you put the code. Now the banks disabled it, and they created push-up notification in the banking app.
Yeah, which makes you sort of have to.
And this prevented good fraud and the scam campaigns from being successful, simply because hackers were relying on the SMS code.
100%.
Now they're no longer able to get it because it's through the application.
And you have to log into the application and use your specific.
It's getting harder.
Yeah.
Now.
So that's clever from the banks doing that, as you'd say.
Exactly. Yeah. This doesn't, kind of eliminate the concept of having a brand protection and awareness educational things, but at least it reduces the risk.
Absolutely.
Because there will be always some risk. There is no zero risk.
Yeah.
And a brand monitoring tool, at least telling you, hey, your posture on the internet is like this, on dark web, on social media, on deep web. Posture of your employees' awareness, of the consumer awareness, of the brand awareness as a whole, of the retailers, third-party supply chain contractors, people we interact with, so on. Yeah, that is critical.
Yeah, having that information and being aware of it is key.
Yeah.
No, it's another fantastic answer, and as you say, it makes sense. Obviously, you don't want to impact that experience for the customer, but as you say, on the other end of things, you can make it much more difficult for the hacker to find those customers, and I think you've made that.
By nature, people tend to follow what is easier for them.
Absolutely.
Right? And if you can find a solution where you make the service smooth, easy, flexible for the end user, at the same time secure, protected, that is amazing.
Yeah, that's the balance that you want, and unfortunately that hasn't been the case in a lot of regards. But no, as I say, it's another excellent answer, Ahmed. You mentioned, and we've talked about before, things like zero trust and things like that. But an increasing term that I'm reading a lot about in cybersecurity is sort of zero-day attacks.
Oh yeah.
Can you help me understand, and again for our viewers that mightn't be privy to it, the definition of a zero-day attack, the sort of life cycle of it, and then ultimately the sort of the impact that it can have for those affected by it?
Yeah. Well, zero-day means there is a vulnerability or an actual exploit for a specific technology or a product utilized by any consumer, which only the person who discovered this exploit knows about, or the entity or the group and so on. So you technically, for example, use firewall. That firewall has a 0 day. You don't know, the company, the owner of this firewall don't know, but the hackers who discovered it knows,
Okay, so they're not aware of it then? Like the company's not aware of it, and the hacker has exposed that vulnerability in the software, is it?
Yeah, and they try to sell it, or they try to utilize it, so abuse it, gain access, or exfiltrate data, depending on what this 0 day cause. Because everything is mapped to the vulnerabilities in the end and the level of exploitation. So they either try to utilize it or they try to sell it to other entities or groups which will be interested in having it, and so on, until the vendor, the owner of this product, or the end users are aware about suspicious activity. And then they realize there is some vulnerability. They, utilize the analysts to understand where it is, and so on. Then they get to understanding where exactly it is found.
Yeah, and where it came from, how it happened, and how much of a challenge is that? Is that a growing problem?
Oh yeah, 0 days every day.
Yeah, 0 days every day.
Always.
Yeah. No, look, I don't want to keep you much longer. We've covered a lot of ground. As always, it's been a brilliant interview, very informative. I know we're here at the CIO Leadership Awards. You're presenting on stage later. I've got a panel discussion to do. But just finally, I suppose Resecurity is a company I'm very familiar with, having huge success with yourself at the helm, growing all the time. But you operate in a very competitive marketplace. There's a lot of people that promise they've got a silver bullet. We can protect you, we can do that. And I think there's a bit of distrust maybe sown in some regards when it comes to cybersecurity, but you're a company that seems to continually grow and sort of back up what you're saying, really. So what would you say differentiates you from other market competitors that is why the market is resonating with you and continually showing their trust in your sort of portfolio of technologies?
Yeah. I would say we don't look into the cyber news part of things. Like incidents, everyone tries to report incident after it already happens, which is too late, right? Mm-hmm. So we try to predict. Now, like with the AI, we deployed, artificial intelligence within our technologies. Doesn't just state for you the incidents with the details and the indicators and so on, but also predict where this group may target later. And based on the behavior pattern, matching, profiling, and so on. So one thing I would say is we try to look at the root cause of the issues and identify any precursor of breach incident before it hits hard,
Yeah.
And this brings us to the second thing, which is we look for an actual actionable intelligence. We're here to identify whether your brand is being targeted, whether you have a material breach before it explodes. Think of ransomware attacks. They occur because there was an access to the network or the endpoint or whatever.
Exactly.
Exactly. So if you can map this, if you can identify it before the ransomware hits, that's the heroic thing, and that's what we look for. And by the way, we did even in UAE with some customers. So we identified the incident before it gets public, and before it gets escalated to a ransomware or rootkit and so on, or data exfiltration. Either from a zero-day discovery or from a botnet or a malware that was bypassing their security controls.
But that's the power. So that's the key differentiator you have, is that ability to predict. Because I was speaking to sort of an IT leader in healthcare, and that's what he was talking about. He was like, they want to be predictive rather than coming into the hospital and diagnosing someone with, you've got A, B, or C, and then trying to treat it. Can we, based on your family history, based on your previous, predict that you may get an illness, and then trying to prevent that? And that's the power. And it sounds like, from what you're saying, that's really the power in order to differentiate you from others, is we can actually stop it, or try to stop it, or predict when it could happen, which either if it stops it, great, but if not, it mitigates the damage. So that predictive element is the key, really.
Exactly. I mean, if you think of what we do, we technically monitor the whole internet, right? So you may did a mistake in the brand, for example, security posture or something, but you didn't know, it's not intentional. And through our thorough monitoring and analysis, we can identify this loophole that was done and aware you and try to fix it together before it's spread, before it is announced by threat actors, by criminals, and so on. So this kind of prediction of something before it technically collapse or expedite the damage is important. And we're very good at doing this. Yeah, no, you absolutely are very good at doing this, and I wish you continued success. It's been a pleasure speaking to you. I think, as always, you articulate what it is that makes Resecurity brilliant. But what I enjoyed about this conversation, you sort of provided a comprehensive overview of the actual industry in terms of threats, in terms of AI, and as I say, very informative for me, and I'm sure our audience will have gained a lot of value from it as well. So, Ahmad, thanks a million for your time, and it's been a pleasure. Appreciate it, Mark. Thank you.